June 6, 1944. Dawn over the Cotentin Peninsula, Normandy. A low mist clings to the hedgerows like breath on glass. The air is thick with the salt of the Channel and the iron scent of cordite. From the blacked-out belly of a Horsa glider, a German sentry on the ground hears only the wind, until the wind tears open. Wooden wings slice the fog. Ropes hiss. Boots strike earth. In 30 seconds, the night is no longer his. This was the moment the Atlantic Wall cracked from within. For 4 years, the Reich had poured concrete and steel into a fortress meant to swallow invasions whole. Hitler had boasted that Fortress Europe would stand 1,000 years. Yet on the first hours of D-Day, before a single Allied tank rolled off a landing craft, American and British airborne divisions, 13,000 paratroopers and glider infantry, dropped behind the coastal crust. Operation Albany, Boston, Chicago, Detroit. Code names that sounded like Midwestern rail stops, not the harbingers of ruin. Their mission was surgical: seize causeways, silence batteries, sow panic. They succeeded beyond Eisenhower's most optimistic briefing, and in the doing, they shattered something deeper than bunkers. The German soldier expected annihilation from the sea. Wave after wave of ships, the Royal Navy's thunder, the Red Army's distant growl. Propaganda reels had conditioned him to picture British Tommies cowering under Stukas, Americans drowning beneath their own landing craft. Instead, the sky betrayed him. At 0400 hours, Hauptmann Wilhelm Richter of the 919th Grenadier Regiment watched silhouettes descend like black snow. His men, veterans of Poland and France, had never imagined the enemy could walk out of the clouds. "We thought we held the night," Richter wrote in a letter never mailed. Then the night held us. By first light, the fields behind Utah Beach were littered with splintered plywood and silk. Waco gliders lay broken like fallen birds, yet from their carcasses poured men carrying more ammunition than a Wehrmacht company could requisition in a month. Each trooper of the 101st Airborne bore 120 rounds for his Garand, 6 grenades, a K-ration box, and, most bewildering to the Germans, chocolate. Hershey's tropical bars, wax-wrapped, stamped with the promise of 600 calories. To a Lanzer, subsisting on sawdust bread and ersatz coffee, the sight was obscene. Private Hans Becker, 21, captured near Sainte-Mère-Église, remembered the first American he saw up close. A sergeant lighting a cigarette with a Zippo that flicked open like a promise kept. The sergeant offered the pack. Lucky Strike, green foil glinting. Becker took one with trembling fingers. "I cried," he admitted to an interrogator 2 days later. "Not from fear, from the taste of real tobacco after 3 years of nettles." The Hershey bar followed. Becker unwrapped it slowly, as though it might vanish. When the chocolate touched his tongue, he wept again, silently, so his comrades would not see. Across the drop zones, the same scene repeated. Feldwebel Karl Dunn, of the 709th Static Division, found a discarded K-ration. Inside, canned ham and egg, powdered lemon, 4 cigarettes, chewing gum, toilet paper. He sat on an ammunition crate and ate the lemon powder dry, eyes closed, letting the acid sting away the memory of turnip stew. "We were told the Americans were soft," he scrawled in his diary. "Soft men do not jump from the sky with breakfast in their pockets." The symbolic object that threaded every encounter was the K-ration box itself. Cardboard printed in cheerful primary colors, small enough to fit a breast pocket, yet containing an entire day's sustenance. To the paratrooper, it was routine. To the German, it was alchemy, democracy distilled into calories. One box could feed a family of French peasants for 2 days. One box could bribe a sentry to look away. One box, torn open under moonlight, revealed the gulf between empires. While Goebbels promised a Europe of iron discipline, the Americans arrived bearing sugar. By noon on D+1, the causeways were secure. The 82nd Airborne held the Murderette bridges. The 101st linked Utah with the sea. Casualties were brutal. Nearly 2,500 airborne missing or dead. But the lodgment stood. German counterattacks faltered, not for lack of courage, but for lack of everything else. Fuel, ammunition, morale. Generalleutnant Karl Wilhelm von Schlieben, commanding the Cherbourg garrison, radioed 7th Army headquarters. Enemy behind us in strength. Gliders everywhere. Request immediate relief. The reply never came. In the weeks that followed, thousands of German prisoners marched eastward under guard. Many carried K-ration wrappers folded into their caps like talismans. Interrogators noted a strange reluctance to discard the empty boxes. One Obergefreiter, asked why, replied, "Because they still smell like America." The phrase entered intelligence summaries and, eventually, history. The transformation was subtler than surrender. Men who had saluted the swastika with mechanical pride now questioned the arithmetic of conquest. If the enemy could rain chocolate from the heavens, what else had the Führer miscalculated? If a single night's drop could feed an army, how hollow was the promise of Lebensraum? In the hedgerows of Normandy, ideology curdled. The K-ration, box, cheap pasteboard, mass-produced, disposable, became the quiet rebuttal to 1,000 speeches. Years later, in the ruins of the Reich, survivors would recall not the roar of artillery, but the crinkle of wax paper. Hans Becker, repatriated in 1947, kept one Hershey wrapper pressed between the pages of a Bible he no longer believed in. Carl Dunn planted apple seeds from a K-ration fruit bar in his ruined garden. The tree still stands outside Hildesheim, bearing sweet fruit every August. And so the gliders fell, and with them fell illusions. Out of splintered plywood and silk came not merely soldiers, but a proposition that freedom might be measured in cigarettes and chocolate, in the dignity of a full stomach, in the audacity to share abundance with strangers under fire. The Atlantic Wall was breached by steel, yes, but it was cracked open by sweetness. In the long ledger of the war, One Night Behind the Lines wrote a postscript no propaganda could erase. A hungry soldier weeping over a candy bar, tasting for the first time the flavor of a world that refused to ration hope.